All right, Josh. Hello there.
Hello there.
I'm excited, man. We're back. We're gonna be doing this again for another season, although a short season. It seems there's I believe there's 6 episodes. We've already got the first 2. That was exciting. I didn't realize that it was going to be released. I don't think anyone realized it was going to be released as early as it was. So I actually was. We were at the Cornsey and I were at the shellacking that the White Sox were getting from the Red Sox, and she's like, "Hey, they just dropped that Kenobi's going to be on at like 11 p.m. our time," and we were like, "All right, let's get out of here." we just left. We left. We're like, "We're going to go watch Star Wars. It's going to be way better than what we're watching here." And so we went home and watched that night, and I've watched again since. But Josh, what are your initial thoughts, man? How do you liking the show?
Well, I'm just so glad to see Ewan McGregor coming back, playing Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's Star Wars Celebration this week, so we were getting a lot of new Star Wars content that's going to be coming down the pipe. I think we could just do an entire podcast talking about everything that Lucasfilm has announced that's coming up, like Andor and the plans with Andor, and that trailer looks phenomenal. The bootleg trailer that was released for Mandalorian season 3, and even some new Star Wars shows that were not previously announced. Jude Law is now going to be part of the Star Wars universe. But when Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen came out for their conversations, and when Hayden kicked it off saying, "This is where the fun begins," and everyone going ecstatic, just really hyped me up for the first 2 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And we knew that was going to be Deborah Chow that'll be directing, and she did a phenomenal job in season 1 of The Mandalorian, and I think she deserves for this series and being able to tell this story of Obi-Wan Kenobi. There are some surprises that we're going to talk about that I was not expecting at all to show up in this limited series. I think there are some canon questions that definitely need to be resolved in the very next episode.
For sure.
So they may have accidentally stepped into a Sarlacc pit and could really make the diehard Star Wars fans pretty angry. I have to imagine Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni had to consult on the storyline with Obi-Wan Kenobi to make sure that it's still in the right direction and that everything is lined up correctly. But overall, the new characters that they have introduced, like Riva, she's phenomenal. And I think she's got so much potential. And I really like where they have taken Obi-Wan Kenobi as the character 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. So I really enjoy these 2 episodes, but I do understand some of the criticisms online right now after the first 2 episodes that you have fallen into a trap possibly with some of the storytelling, and we'll get to that in a moment.
So I partially agree. I partially agree that they may have stepped into a trap, but we'll get into it. But Josh, this is, we're 108 Sox Machine. We talk about some crazy stuff. So the first thing I want to ask you is, would you eat that giant fish Obi-Wan was carving up? So I'm assuming it's a fish. So that said, so let's think about this. This was once a water planet, or at least they had water. So it's probably been there a while. However, dry aged is always good, right? So I don't know. I'm looking at him cutting it up. Looks sushi grade to me. I'd be in. Would you eat this fish?
Kind of looks like tuna, doesn't it?
It looks a lot like tuna. It looks like some big tuna steaks.
Yeah, I'm not a big tuna guy. So if it smelled like tuna and it tasted like tuna, I'm probably out. Salmon, I only like it when my fiance Kim makes it. She does a really good job with it. If I'm at a restaurant, I rarely order salmon. The cut of seafood that I like is swordfish. I really do enjoy swordfish, but it's like one of the most expensive seafood menu items that you could purchase, and you never find it in Chicago. You have to go. I usually have to get it when I'm in Florida.
Okay.
But yeah, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the butcher. I like that different angle because, with the first episode, you're getting a glimpse of Obi-Wan's life a decade after Revenge of the Sith. And, it does raise questions like, just practical questions of, well, how does he survive? Like, what is he doing? He's a butcher now. Wasn't expecting that.
It's an interesting and it's an interesting question here too. I would say that it's probably not quite Martian crab. Martian crab is a delicacy, but I would also think that this is probably expensive because they're not paying them in this, right? They're giving them that other crappy food to like almost along the lines of the Force Awakens little portions, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the idea of showing what is Obi-Wan doing to live, right? Because like when he's like the hermit in the cave, it's like, okay, but like what's he surviving on?
Right.
And man, he's got a heck of a park and ride commute. I'll tell you, like he's way out there, like they show the town, and that's where he kind of puts his, I forget what that animal's called. But then he has to then go all the way out to wherever he is. It's so desolate, and it's kind of sad in a way, right? Like it's just like, and it's meant to be. He's got this like huge distance that he's keeping from Owen and the family. He's got a huge distance that he's keeping from the town to stay undetected, and it's just monotonous. They show 2 of his days, and they are exactly the same, right? Like, so he's just repeating and repeating and repeating. And this has been, as you mentioned, 10 years of this, just kind of driving him down into the depths. And that leads me to my next question, Josh, is like, what thoughts did you have on Obi-Wan's interactions with Owen, the other Jedi that shows up, and even, anyone in this series, even the Bail Organa piece?
So let's start with the Other Jedi, because that whole scene at the saloon was fantastic. So we're introduced to the Grand Inquisitor. This is where we fall into the trap, and we have to talk about the Grand Inquisitor later. But the Grand Inquisitor doing such a good job setting the scene and talking about that Inquisitors don't hunt Jedi. Jedis hunt themselves, and creating tension within the saloon and interrogating the barkeep, trying to lure the Jedi out. And then, spoiler alert, Riva taking the knife and throwing it at the barkeep, and then the Jedi stopping it. And I think it really sets up the relationship between the Grand Inquisitor and Riva. And this is what we see throughout Star Wars lore, especially those that go into the dark side, especially during the Empire days, is that the Inquisitors are given this task to hunt Jedi. But because they are embracing the dark side, the personal gains sometimes get in the way of collaboration. And it is pretty clear that Riva is getting really bored hunting down low-key Jedi like we find in the Katina. Like, I don't even remember what this Jedi's name is. Like, Jedi, I don't know what the name was, and I had closed captions on. So that Jedi's not really important, but I think what's important about this Jedi that does escape and eventually finds Obi-Wan Kenobi in the desert is that dialogue back and forth, and that Obi-Wan is just like he's scared. Like, why did you find me? Not so much how did you find me? Why did you find me? We lost. Like, it's the acceptance part of we failed. You need to bury your lightsaber in the middle of the desert. The days of being a Jedi are over. And it was just that acceptance of Obi-Wan embracing what his new life is that was a bit surprising. Usually, our heroes, there's an opportunity to go back in the past and be the hero again. And at that moment, Obi-Wan Kenobi has no interest helping out his fellow Jedi And then we find out that the Jedi is pretty much lynched in the town,
Yeah.
which is a disturbing scene. So I think the interaction between Other Jedi and Obi-Wan Kenobi really sets the stage on how Obi-Wan Kenobi has just accepted his fate for the rest of his life, that he can't go back in the past. He cannot expose himself, because if he does, it exposes Luke, and that's his primary mission. So no matter what Jedi attempts to find him and lure him back, they're not going to be successful. And this holds true all the way through Star Wars Rebels, when Ezra Bridger finds Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Obi-Wan Kenobi shuts down Ezra Bridger's offer to help the rebellion. So that remains true from this series and continuing in canon through Star Wars Rebels. So that's my take on the Jedi and Obi-Wan Kenobi. How did you feel about that relationship between going to the other interactions?
So I think of it a little bit differently. So I think we're made to see it as Obi-Wan's broken down and scared. I kind of see it more as Obi-Wan continues to be overly dogmatic and
good point.
Assigned to the principles of the Jedi. I don't think he's given up on anything. He's really just going, I have one mission. This kid's the chosen one. And one little peek that we got at it was when he wakes up and he tries to reach out to Qui-Gon, because he's still trying to do the things that he was told to do from Yoda, right? He's still just completely listening to Yoda's instruction. And I think, this is a downfall of the Jedi overall, right? Is that they got really aligned to these principles that they had to follow, and then that ended up undoing them. And this is more of that. This is Obi-Wan can't shake that. He's got one mission, and it's to watch over Luke, who, like I said, he mentions in Rebels that he is the chosen one. He's still on that chosen one path. So I think that's what we're seeing here, and it's unfortunate because it's at the expense of this guy's life. It's like he could have told him, "Hey, there's a cave 50 feet down. Let's hang out here. Well, we got stuff to do." But I think he realized this guy would expose them, and he just couldn't have it. And that's so it's at the expense of this guy getting murdered by the townspeople, because it wasn't the Inquisitors. Like, it would have looked a lot different if he was the Inquisitors. So I mean, like, he's focused on Luke almost to a fault. And you see it in his interactions with Owen too, right? Like, he's only here to protect Luke, to watch over Luke, and he's trying to get into Luke's life now because he's wondering, is this kid starting to show that he's a Jedi? Josh, what did you think about that interaction, the interaction between Owen and Obi-Wan? Because that was the one from the trailer that created a billion memes, which I loved every one of them. What did you think about that?
Yeah, Owen shutting down Obi-Wan Kenobi was a fantastic scene and interaction, and then it follows right into Riva interrogating the town square and threatening Owen's life if he doesn't release any type of information, or if the town folk don't release any information of what they know about any possible Jedi findings. I thought Owen was going to get killed there for a minute, and then we would have some big canon problems. But Owen refusing to leak any information, or just pointing over there, be like, yeah, there's a Jedi right over there. It's Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then having chaos reign would have made, New Hope really interesting. But when he said to Obi-Wan that he didn't do it for him, and obviously he did it for Luke, I think really sets the table, because if you just watch A New Hope, you just figure, well, this is just Uncle Owen who desperately wants to keep Luke around because he's an old man now. He's an old farmer, and he still needs help. And he's really reluctant letting Luke join, any type of, as far as the rebellion or the empire, as far as that Air Force, really refusing Luke to let go and allow him to see the galaxy, still protecting him all the way from A New Hope. And we get that first glimpse in this episode with Owen and Riva. And I don't know how much we're gonna see of Owen, if this is the only time we see Owen throughout the series.
It's not clear what the story is going to be moving forward or how that's going to be. I did have a bit of a problem with Riva's detective work. She was like, "Oh, you're Owen Lars, the farmer. It's weird that your son is named Luke Skywalker. That's kind of a famous name, Like she just had to take that one extra step. Would have figured everything out, but she fell short.
I would argue Luke's not in the database. Luke is not registered.
That's probably true. That's probably true. It's probably he's like, oh no, that's just some kid that works on my farm. I don't know him.
So do you think we see Owen again?
I think we're going to have to see him towards the end of the series. I think there's going to be a kind of a gap here, but I think there's going to be some kind of reckoning between the two of them, because that toy ends up in Luke's hands at some point. I mean, that's the thing, he's flying around in New Hope. So he gets that at some point, right? Now it's just broken on the floor somewhere, but that ends up in his hands. He cleans it up, and it looks way nicer than what Tika gave gave Obi-Wan. But yeah, so I think that there's going to be some kind of understanding at some point. But I think at the very end of the day, Owen is very protective of Luke, and he does not want him to end up the way that his father did. So I think we'll see, but I don't see it being something that happens right away. I don't see Owen being a big part of this series. I think this is Obi-Wan's gonna go into like a whole new direction, mostly off Tatooine, which will be a nice departure. And that's because, as we mentioned, another interaction that he had, which was with Bail Organa. To me, this was interesting, Josh. Bail asks for help with the Leia situation, which we'll get into now. And Obi-Wan pushes him off. And again, I don't know that it's because he was actually scared, but this is more of Obi-Wan being dismissive of Leia being force sensitive, being possibly the chosen one. Even in I think is it Empire, where they say there's another. It's either Empire or Jedi. I can't remember.
Empire.
He's still like, whatever, right? Like, so I'm interested to see how this interaction goes. What are your thoughts on the young Leia plot?
So I love the young Leia plot. Now, there's a lot of folks online that are expressing their disinterest in the young Leia plot. I love it. It reminds me a lot of Game of Thrones with Lady Mormont on Bear Island, especially the scenes when Jon Stark is trying to recruit a rebellion to retake Winterfell. Mm-hmm. And I thought that actress did a phenomenal job, because here's this little girl just sassing off to everyone in the room. And you get a little bit of that with young Leia here, and on how she doesn't really want to live the royal lifestyle. She wants to climb trees and watch the starships come in and leave Alderaan. And I think the interactions with her and Bail Organa, I think they're very sentimental as far as father-daughter type of relationships. Bail Organa, #GirlDad. And, just some of the interactions with the royal families, and how everybody knows in the Organa family that she's not a real Organa. And that kind of gets underneath their skin. But even though she's 10 years old, she's incredibly bright.
Mm-hmm.
Bail Organa knowing where to find Obi-Wan Kenobi is interesting. And I'm not quite sure how he was able to locate Obi-Wan Kenobi so easily. But convincing Obi-Wan Kenobi to go after Leia, because if she falls in the wrong hands and people figure out who she is, actually who she is, that's going to create trouble. And that's not going to just create trouble for Bail Organa and losing his adopted daughter, but it's going to create trouble for Obi-Wan and his mission and keeping Luke safe.
Yeah, and the galaxy at large, really.
Yes. So, yeah, Obi-Wan has no choice, right? He has to take this mission to find Leia. I think and this is where I like the Riva character so much, because especially if you watch Star Wars Rebels, there's a lot of traps the Inquisitors lay down to hunt Jedi. And it does go into this theme already. Jedis hunt themselves. All you have to do as an Inquisitor is set the trap. And they keep repeating this. Jedis can't help themselves. And Obi-Wan Kenobi can't help himself. And he was able to, obviously using the Force, locate where he buried his lightsaber in the middle of the desert. And now we're off to an adventure to save young Leia. But I really enjoyed this angle. I'm curious to see on how it ends. And maybe the story ends in the next episode 3. And that is your overarching arc of the young Leia character. But we were asking ourselves before the series started, Cherizi, what's going to force Obi-Wan Kenobi off of Tatooine? Because if you're going to have this type of series and you're going to have this type of conflict, and if everyone's hyping up another duel between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi, something has to get him off Tatooine. He can't have that fight on Tatooine. That's too much heat. And thanks to young Leia is the reason why Obi-Wan Kenobi leaves Tatooine for a moment.
Yeah, and I think I like this. By the way, I like this plot. I like the way that they did this. I like that they used Flea because I swear to God, I mean, like
that's who it is.
This week they have just literally been writing and putting things out for me personally. I think, right? They're like, we're like, hey, do you want a trailer of this awesome show that we find out is 12 episodes with a Hispanic lead? There you go, Cherizi, just for you. And by the way, one of your favorite bass players is going to be in Star Wars now. How about that? You know, we got someone's hand cut off. I mean, like everything's just lining up that I was just like all my favorite things. But so, yeah, I like the plot. I don't know that I want this to go the entire 6 episodes. It will get very Mandalorian-esque, right? Like we don't want him carrying around a child. That's not how this needs to go. But I think this is kind of going to start him. Like I think he's going to get Leia back to. I'm hoping he gets Leia back to Bail and on Alderaan, and that's kind of the end of that. But the Inquisitors chase continues. Specifically Riva. Obviously, she's very interested in getting him. But I think there's some bit here that we're going to see that Riva is doing something that Vader does not want them to do. It doesn't seem that he doesn't want the Inquisitors to catch Kenobi because he wants to himself, or he actively doesn't want them to get Kenobi. Like he wants him out there for some reason, like that he'll, and so that part of it makes me think that there's going to be kind of 3 things happening, right? Like Kenobi's on the run, Riva's chasing Kenobi, and Vader is now going to intervene in some way. So I'm interested to see how that all goes. Speaking of Riva,
the Obi-Wan and Bail, like in the next episode on how this story arc ends, I think Obi-Wan will need to tell Bail, we cannot interact anymore. Mm-hmm. The Inquisitors know about our previous relationship. They know I was exposed. You're lucky to have Leia back, but this is the last time we can interact, both for my safety and your family's safety. And then he'll end it with that interaction saying, Bail, he knows. And that he is obviously Darth Vader. And with Bail Organa still being an Imperial senator, that obviously causes complications and maybe gets Bail Organa to really speed up as far as the rebellion effort, especially because we do see Bail Organa in Rogue One. And obviously it grows before you get into that famous scene about Hope and other parts of the alliance for the rebels not wanting to go get the Death Star plans. And then, and of course, Bail Organa saying that I would trust her with my life. So that whole scene, we know it builds up to Rogue One, but that does obviously start creating inner conflict for Bail Organa and, of course, Alderaan, the planet.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I like the idea of saying, like, this is it. And it will make more sense because years later, Leia doesn't talk to him about their long-standing relationship because she only met him for this day, let's call it, or a couple days. And instead she's mentioning, you served my father, you know? So I think that would make a lot more sense to me if this is a very short interaction. He gets this moved off of his plate, basically, to get back to Luke. Obviously, that's not going to happen immediately. There's going to be some kind of conflict, but I like that idea a lot. As we talk about Riva earlier, and then the Grand Inquisitor, and also, you know, you mentioned some of the traps that they were setting in Rebels, and some of the main ones were set by the Grand Inquisitor. He doesn't look alive here, so I'm wondering what happens here, or does he actually live through this? I mean, like, tons of people have lived in Star Wars from worse, right? Like, I mean,
yes,
Maul was cut in half, so it's very possible that he's alive somehow. What did you think about this scene in general? But then, what do you think they're going to do with the Inquisitor's character?
Is this the same Grand Inquisitor as the one we saw in Star Wars Rebels? That's the first question. And that's where you go down this decision tree. Yes or no? Is this the same Grand Inquisitor?
You would assume so. He has the same markings, right? He has the exact same markings. It's very similar look. Now, I believe on IMDb he's credited as Inquisitor and not Grand Inquisitor. So we can have that debate there.
But they call him the Grand Inquisitor in the show.
Okay, if he was mentioned as the Grand Inquisitor, then yes. I mean, like, I don't see how else it could be, you know, a different character, because this would have been the Temple Guard that turned, like, you know, it would be weird if they're like, oh, there's another guy that just looks exactly the same as him and becomes the Grand Inquisitor.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, it is possible that it could be someone that is the same race and they look similar. That
would be a stretch. That'd be like right out of what was that beer movie where they're like in the beer competition and like the guy dies and then his twin brother shows up and he's like, oh, and I know all about you guys, so it's gonna be like no one ever left. Like that's the only thing I could.
Or
think
Avatar.
Of.
Oh, your twin brother died, and here you are crippled. Now we got to use your brain to sync up with our. I don't even remember what they're called. Yeah, see, and those are plot stretches, but I think it's just as much of a stretch as, oh, this guy survives. Like, look at that. I mean, the lightsaber's more than halfway through him.
Yeah, I mean, he's quite soldered at this moment. Like,
quite soldered. Yes, quite soldered would be correct. So the action itself. So okay, this is the plot hole that creates a lot of issues. If this Grand Inquisitor is the same Grand Inquisitor we saw in Star Wars Rebels, we got problems. But Riva doing this again, it's this whole, even though you have all these Inquisitors and they're supposed to be working together to accomplish their missions, it just seems like Terezi, they're also encouraged that, hey, if you want a promotion, just kill your boss.
I mean, that is definitely the Sith way, though, right? I mean, there's I think it's in the comic series where like Vader tries to overthrow the Emperor, and the Emperor's like, "Yeah, I'm glad you're kind of coming into your own. Like, yeah, you're starting to fulfill what you're supposed to be, right? Like, it's yeah. I think there's very much they an expectation that there's competition. You're going to kill each other eventually, which is a would make for a tenuous workplace. I mean, I don't think I would want to work there. Um, but yeah, I mean, this is what it is, right? The question I have is if they're working under different instructions, right? Like, is Riva just unaware of the instructions that the Grand Inquisitor has to not hunt Obi-Wan? Because he could have just jumped in there and helped slaughter Obi-Wan, and they could have done it together, or he could have even just run past her and done it. He almost makes an obstacle out of himself in this situation so that Obi-Wan does get away. I don't think he expected to get stabbed through the stomach like he did, but I think he did expect to make enough time for Obi-Wan to get out of there. And I'm going back to this, like, Vader wants Obi-Wan for himself, and I don't know that it's just bring me Obi-Wan as much as it is I want to find him. I want to be the one that gets him, or that he just wants him to be out there and not dead.
Yeah, I think Riva. So I'm getting the impression Riva wants to kill Obi-Wan Kenobi to present that to the Emperor that she may be stronger than even Darth Vader. So let's go down that line, okay? I killed Obi-Wan Kenobi. I should be your apprentice. And then maybe you get some type of duel between Riva and Darth Vader, which would be pretty awesome. But I think with the Grand Inquisitor, I think the plan is if you do see Obi-Wan Kenobi, capture him alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Riva's got any interest in catching Obi-Wan Kenobi alive. I think Riva's plan is to kill Obi-Wan Kenobi so she can say, I killed the second most powerful living Jedi. Obviously, the most powerful would be Yoda. I killed Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then because you did that, you rise through the ranks. You gain more power. And that's what it's all about for Riva is power.
Is it partially power and partially you were supposed to protect us? Like, I'm assuming she's the kid in the beginning. Like, I assume that she's one of the Padawans in the beginning that runs out of there. So I think that, is there a you were supposed to be there to protect us and you were not there? I mean, he's obviously elsewhere, fighting General Grievous at the time, but is there a level of that? Is there a level of like, I hate you because you should have been there, even if it's misplaced, and that kind of hatred can grow and grow and grow, and that's and it could be a combination of I hate this guy and I want to be Vader's apprentice, and I don't like these other people who treat me like trash because I was found by them and then raised as a Sith as opposed to the Jedi that I was supposed to become.
Well, we do have this comment from Ray Wegner that kind of piggybacks on what you're saying, Cherizi. It seems like there's something personal for Riva with Obi-Wan, something from her past. Maybe we do see that. Again, we've got 4 more episodes. I guess that is a great question and point that both you and Ray are bringing up. What is fueling this obsession for Riva? And this is just like not a recent obsession. This is a decade-long obsession that Riva's had trying to find Obi-Wan Kenobi. She doesn't want to find any other Jedi. She wants to take ruthless tactics in finding Obi-Wan Kenobi, like orchestrating kidnapping the daughter of an Imperial senator may get you killed by Darth Vader and the Empire. However, the plan worked.
Yeah.
And that's how she can survive. My plan worked. Obi-Wan Kenobi lives. I proved after all those years that all the Inquisitors stopped hunting down number one on the most wanted list of ex-Jedi. I found him, and I should be the one to hunt him down. And we'll see how that conflict grows.
Speaking of her obsession, speaking of her kind of knowledge of all these things and her hunting, how does she know that Darth Vader is Anakin? And the reason I ask this is because if you read any of the books or go through any of the material where in between these timelines, Vader is very much, even to himself, doesn't believe himself to be Anakin Skywalker. Like he talks about Anakin Skywalker as though he's a different person, even with like the Emperor. Like he has separated those two, right? And so it's interesting that she would know that, first of all, that he's Anakin. I mean, like, there's ways to figure it out, right? I mean, like in the books, Thrawn has a pretty good idea that this is the same person, but in her knowing, I don't think all the Inquisitors would know this, right? I don't think he would ever give that information willingly. And, I think we've mentioned it like 3 or 4 times now. I'm pretty sure Darth Vader's going to kill Riva. I think that's going to happen in this series. Because he definitely doesn't want this out there. And he surely doesn't want it in Obi-Wan's hands. Like, he doesn't want him to know about it. So, yeah, Josh, how do you think this even came about? How did she figure this out?
So before this, the whole trap, like when the Grand Inquisitor is angry at Riva for kidnapping the daughter of an Imperial senator, she tells the Grand Inquisitor, I went through the archives and found a connection between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Bail Organa. That's why I kidnapped the daughter, because there's some type of connection with Bail Organa. And if I'm going to find Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's through Bail Organa. So Riva, even though she is brutal in her tactics, is very resourceful and is willing to go into the archives and study the history and be able to create or link the relationships based on the information in the archives. Is she putting 2 to 2 together, or in interrogation methods, is she fishing? Is her saying that Anakin is alive, Obi? Maybe she doesn't 100% know that's true, but she's fishing. And knowing that Obi-Wan's in the room and hiding, does that lure Obi-Wan Kenobi out, that his old Padawan is still alive?
I like that.
I 100% agree with you, though, that if Riva makes it known to Darth Vader that she knows he's Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader is going to kill her on the spot, because absolutely. Darth Vader does not want that to be known at all. And that even goes back to the interactions. Again, there's going to be a lot of going back and forth between Star Wars Rebels and this series. It feels like that Darth Vader and Ahsoka, when they have their duel, that Darth Vader says Anakin Skywalker was weak and I killed him. And that starts the whole battle between Ahsoka and Darth Vader, because Ahsoka is avenging her old master and best friend, Anakin Skywalker, even though they're one of the same. Mm-hmm. So Darth Vader has all interest in killing the Anakin Skywalker name. And if it is known that Riva knows that he's Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader will kill her.
I couldn't agree more. I like the fishing tactic that you mentioned. Like, it's very possible that she, put down this timeline for herself of like, what are all the things that happened around Order 66, right? And while this new apprentice shows up out of nowhere, who has like these breathing apparatuses and is all, it's all this tech to keep them alive. And Obi-Wan killed Anakin right around the exact moment that this happened. And it, there's probably, if she's seen the archive footage of Anakin chopping up all of the younglings, it starts to make sense, but she might not be sure. And this might be her way of drawing it out. of like, I have this hunch that this is what happened. I'm gonna get Obi-Wan to sense it and maybe even expose it himself. So that could be very interesting. That could be an interesting plot. I mean, it'd be crazy if Obi-Wan starts trying to chase down Vader in this to find out if it's truly Anakin. I don't know that would be the way it goes, because I think he's so intent on keeping Luke safe that he wouldn't do that. But I don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, and everything that we saw in the trailer and all the footage that was teased for Obi-Wan Kenobi, all of it was from these first 2 episodes. There's nothing.
There's like one additional scene that I think we see is when they go to the like Inquisitor's place, and they're like kind of there's more of them kind of in there. That's it. That's all we have to go off for the rest of these episodes, for the rest of the 4 episodes. And I don't even know if that scene's going to be in there, since you just stabbed the Grand Inquisitor in the stomach. So I'm very interested to see like what comes next. I mean, Josh, overall thoughts on the first episode? Like, how did you feel about it? Or first 2 episodes, I should say. How'd you feel? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, if I had to give it a grade, I'm going like A-, B+ range. What's not given in like an A+, like, oh my God, this episode is amazing again, are the plot traps, especially with the Grand Inquisitor. That's the biggest one right now, and to see what happens moving forward. But overall, I think we have really set the stage here, and I want to see the next 4 episodes. Like, you have my attention, and this is an Obi-Wan Kenobi stan. Like, this is fantastic. I see the inner conflict. We have yet to see Obi-Wan Kenobi fire up the lightsaber. He's trying to lean on other methods to save Leia and not expose himself to being a Jedi. But now he's got this little nugget of information, and he's feeling out in the Force. And that was such a great ending scene to see Darth Vader in the bacta tank. He doesn't have enough time in his lifetime to fully heal all of his wounds in the bacta tank. But that was a great scene. And now you may have this Force connection. And to borrow another movie, we may see some John Wick, where in John Wick 2, for that movie, spoiler alert, John Wick gets exposed, and every assassin in the world now is trying to claim the most expensive bounty ever to hunt down John Wick. Every bounty hunter in the galaxy is going to be hunting down Obi-Wan Kenobi. So in these next 4 episodes, how does Obi-Wan Kenobi stay away from Tatooine, continuing to draw away the bounty hunters, continuing to be on the run, which is going to be very tense? How does he run into Darth Vader? And ultimately, how does he go back into hiding? And I'm wondering, before this is over, Obi-Wan Kenobi is going to fake his death.
I like that idea, because the only other idea I had is that he just keeps going around to everybody on the planet and going, I'm not Obi-Wan Kenobi.
That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work.
A lot of hand waving, man. A lot of hand waving. I'm actually Ben Kenobi, his cousin. Don't worry.
Yes.
We just look alike. Yeah, I mean, overall, again, that end scene where Anakin opens his eyes, I'm all for it. It to me, it signified this next episode might be a Vader episode. And if it's a Vader episode, I will be so excited, man. I like if Vader just, goes out there and is slashing up some no-name Jedi, like basically what happened at the beginning of the episode, where it was like Order 66, and it was just like all these Jedi floating around on the ground floor when the kids are running and they're doing their Jedi stuff and getting killed by the clone troopers. If Vader's just doing that for a full episode, I'm in. So I'm interested to see if that's the case. But overall, I like it, and I like how they're treating Leia's character, and I like how they're showing that Luke is possibly starting to get his mindset on being out in the stars, because they are going to grow up fast. New Hope is only 9 years after this, so like they are still teenagers when a New Hope happens. So they've got to like kind of show that these kids are fast tracking towards being the new leaders of this rebellion. So overall, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I would be on the same as you, like A- B+ until I know what's going on with Grand Inquisitor. Like I gotta get that. And then I think I overall just really enjoy it. One last question for you, Josh. We getting Qui-Gon?
We have to. And we're starting to follow this formula like we just saw with Boba Fett. We loved episode 2 of Boba Fett. We loved that episode. Learning more about the Tusken Raiders. And I feel like in episode 2, we really learned, especially for those that didn't watch Rebels, the tactics and how the Inquisitors work. And that's, I think, what makes episode 2 fantastic for Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm wondering if we get Qui-Gon episode 5, like before the finale, is where where we get that.
That would be really good. Like if Qui-Gon imparts some wisdom on Obi-Wan that's used in the finale. I think that would be awesome.
Like maybe as a source of inspiration for Obi-Wan to get up and continue fighting.
I like that.
It's not so much Yoda, it's Obi-Wan speaking with Qui-Gon, and Qui-Gon is the source of motivation to continue to fight, to continue on with the mission, because Qui-Gon is going to reinforce the idea to Obi-Wan that there's still some good that lives within Anakin Skywalker. You can't defeat Darth Vader, but maybe you can bring back Anakin. And that's where Obi-Wan gets the idea of that is Luke's ultimate purpose.
Yeah. Oh man, I like that. And I think honestly, Qui-Gon for me would be enough. Like I don't need a lot of other cameos. Like I'm fine with everyone else being pretty much no named, not a, doesn't have another part in later stuff or earlier stuff. Like I don't need like Quinlan Vos or Cal Kestis or anyone to show up, because it'll complicate things, long-term story wise more than it'll like enhance this. But the Qui-Gon thing, we know it happens at some point. We know that Obi-Wan learns this skill, and I think he could be introduced in a way that would make a lot of sense.
Yes.
Well, Josh, man, it's great to be back. It is very possible that our next episode will be filmed in Las Vegas. So we'll see how that goes. So
find some swimming pool or
it'll
take a lift out in the desert.
Oh man,
just like Tatooine style.
I much like Anakin do not like that much sand. All right. I'm out on that much sand. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks, Josh. This has been a lot of fun, man. I can't wait to talk to you more about this and Andor and the bootleg footage and everything. We'll be talking very soon. Thanks everyone.